while we don't see the foot soldiers, what I call them, like the sheep, the hate is still there. The structure of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and anti-American sentiment is still there. And it puts me in a very scary position because it's easier to fight an enemy that you see than an enemy that's hiding.
We are thrilled to have with us this week as a special guest, Professor Shai Davidai, professor from Columbia University, who is the first person who came out and made us all aware about how bad things were in university college campuses when he simply took a group of students around him and simply shouted about the problem. And since that day, he hasn't stopped fighting for the cause. Professor Shai Davidai, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Flair. Thank you, Shoshana, for having me. I do want to tell one thing. If I wouldn't have spoken up, I am 100% sure someone else would have.
Well, in this show, we like to say to women, you know what, when you've actually done something good, take the credit. So I'm going to say that to a man. You've done something great. Please take the credit. So now I want to ask you, we're talking on our show this week about what's going on in university campuses. We had some really incredible co-hosts like Lisa Lewin from the Brandeis Center, who's fighting the fight in courts. You're fighting the fights really for hearts and minds in university, not just with the students, but with the professors. We are here in a new semester. Shai, what's going on? Have things gotten better, worse? Where are they going? Enlighten us, please.
So I'm afraid to say definitively whether things have gone better or worse, because first of all, it's been less than a month since the beginning of the school year, because we know what things are planned at least for the other side, trying to celebrate October 7, commemorate whatever. So I'm not sure. I don't want to say definitively yes or no. I can tell you that when you walk around Columbia's campus now, it feels like a campus again. It feels like a college. You know, you have the space where the pro-Hamas mob took over and called it the liberated zone last year, which was liberated from Jews and Israelis. Now people are playing frisbee on that grass. Now, it is a little bit of a false safety because there are dozens of safety, like public safety officials on campus that are checking every person, making sure that only the people that are allowed to be on campus are on campus. They've basically created Columbia as some sort of like a military base almost. Like you have to show your picture. It's a little bit like Tel Aviv University.
Or any Israeli university.
But Israeli universities are closed to the public other than people that are affiliated with the university because they are afraid of terrorists. Well, Columbia University is now closed to the public because it's afraid of terrorist sympathizers. They've basically led the university to the same position. But so at the same time, while we walk around and it feels safe, that the fashion trend of the kafia has gone away. So you don't see like hundreds of students with kafias as like, I am a cool resistor of American imperialism and all that BS. You still see many kafias, but those are like the dedicated core of the people that really, really like have hate in their hearts. At the same time, hate doesn't go away, it just go underground, right? So if you go to the school of SIPA, School of International and Public Affairs, they had protests on the first week of classes in the building, protesting Hillary Clinton's lectures. Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State, is a lecturer. They would not let her go to class peacefully. The School of Social Work, you have students bringing up, their political views and agendas in things that are unrelated. You have the student, the PhD student who called for humanitarian aid after they violently took over a university building. And that student has said that her goal is to bring down the American empire. That student is teaching a class on Western civilization. You have Joseph Massad, who said that he had felt jubilation and awe at the massacre of October 7th. He's still teaching. So while we don't see the foot soldiers, what I call them, like the sheep on the ground, the hate is still there. The structure of hatred and anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, and anti-American sentiment is still there. And it puts me in a very scary position because it's easier to fight an enemy that you see than an enemy that's hiding.
You know, Shai, when you're talking like this, I can't help but think of the way that terrorism also metamorphosizes, I think is the right word, right? So we had bus bombings and we had restaurant bombings, and then we had the stabbings and the rammings. And it was like every time we learned how to deal with one thing, they came another way. And it's really just like kind of giving me a little bit of that like feeling of we're going to continue this and you will never know where we're coming next feeling, which is scary. I mean, that's what terror is supposed to do. And our terror sympathizers are obviously learning that type of metamorphosizing, which is scary. As someone who went to an American college and who had a wonderful time in American college, this was terrifying and scary and upsetting to hear. I'm wondering, as the anniversary comes up of October 7th, are you guys like preparing? Are you expecting something on, around October 7th on the other side to be planned? Do you know anything that's happening on either side?
So if I can go to your first point first, I would say we're so used to thinking of terrorism as like the action of terror, but we forget that terrorism is an ideology. We forget that terrorism is, it comes from the word terrorizing. It's not killing, it's not murdering, it's not kidnapping. All of those things terrorists do, but the point is terrorizing, right? Terrorists, they don't need to kill all Jews or all Israelis or all Americans or all Canadians. They only need to kill enough and in random ways in order for the entire people to be terrorized, right? To have 80,000 people in the northern border of Israel not going back home because they are terrorized, right? And the same thing, like when you sympathize with terrorists, you don't need to protest every day. You don't need to call suicide bombers martyrs every day, but you need to do it enough so that the community, the Jewish communities, the Israeli community, but also the administration is terrorized and is afraid of what you will do next. That is why when they built their illegal encampment for 3 weeks and every day it was a little bit worse, the school negotiated with them because the school was terrorized. Let's put that aside and like look forward. There's two ways we are preparing for October 7th, right? The one way, which is, I don't like that way, but we're kind of forced into that way, is the reactive way, the counter-protest way. We are aware that there are plans in all of the United States, across the United States, to celebrate October 7th. We are aware because National Students for Justice in Palestine, this big organization that's pretending to be grassroots, but has millions of dollars a year in funding, funneled through American Muslims in Palestine, which has ties to Hamas, or at least the executive directors have ties to Hamas. They are planning. They are booking spaces in every campus across the U.S. We know that we're planning around the city. You have to remember also that the UN General Assembly is starting this weekend. We already have protests planned for, not we, the other side, Thursday, Friday, and it's going to be like this for weeks. So we have that, and we're preparing to just be there and say, we're not going anywhere. Unlike last year, we have a claim on this space. You can't push us out. I don't like to do that. I don't like dancing tango and not being in the lead. So we also have the other preparation, which is us just being able to be ourselves, to grieve on October 7th, to commemorate and to commemorate everyone, to commemorate the Jews, the Christians, the Druze, the Muslims, everyone who was massacred, and still like the hostages that are still there. That for me is the more important thing. Like having October 7th, the entire week, as a time for us, meaning the Jewish students and the non-Jewish students that have joined us in our allyship, the professors, the community, to just be with ourselves for a second and cry, right? The problem is that we can't just do that because we're always like having to do this other thing as well.
I think we got a lot of people telling us that they just weren't allowed to mourn, and that was part of the terrorism as you describe it, which is so well described. Shai, let me ask you something. Has the university administration changed, improved, learned lessons in any way, or are they simply putting a Band-Aid on a problem that they still really don't want to deal with? And is the threat of, cutting of federal funding because of Title VI and the attacks on Jews, is that going to make a difference? What do you think about the leadership now in the universities?
Yeah. So, when I am not, people forget that when I'm not fighting for the heart of Colombia and the heart of American institutions, I'm actually a professor, right? One thing that's funny is like when you're a professor, I teach 12 weeks and I feel like, the students are learning. And then, I don't have exams. I have a final paper. Then I read the final paper and I'm like, wait, they didn't learn anything, right? And then sometimes I'm surprised. The students I didn't think were learning actually learned quite a bit. So the truth is, I don't know if the administration is learning. I don't know. They're doing all the right signs. They are the students that's sitting in the front of class, that's taking notes. But I don't know. I don't know if they're actually learning. I can only go by their actions. Their actions show that they have not learned. Can
I ask you?
Yeah.
You mentioned being a professor. And yes, those of us who see you making videos we still have to remember you have a day job. Are you more or less popular as a professor now? I'm so curious. Do you have more people signing up for your class?
You're still in Colombia.
I'm still at Columbia. Wow. So Shoshana, first of all, we have this saying, like the chef can't comment on their own cooking. I wouldn't say that I'm more popular or less popular. I'd say that I am differently popular.
But if people are signing up for your classes.
Different people are signing up for my classes.
Okay.
Right? Let me say that. More Jews, more Israelis, and more students that are appreciative of a professor who has a moral backbone.
And how is the administration treating you and the other professors?
So let me break down the administration a little bit, and I'll give you just a few examples because there's so many. So everybody, I hope everybody remembers, and we didn't yet forget, that in around June, there was an event on campus about anti-Semitism during Alumni Week, where Jewish individuals were talking on the panel about anti-Semitism. And at the time, 4 deans and vice deans were texting anti-Semitic tropes about them. 3 of them resigned. No one got fired. 3 of them resigned. But the most senior one, Joseph Soret, who is the dean of Columbia College, still has his job. Not only does he still have his job, he is in charge of Jewish students that are enrolled at Columbia College.
God help us.
So they haven't done anything. On the end of August, there was an event organized by organizations at Columbia, CUNY, City University of New York, NYU, other Students for Justice in Palestine around the city, a virtual event with an imam from Utica, New York. During this event, the imam told them to personally target me. He said, you need to put Shai Davidai in jeopardy, to jeopardize his career, to jeopardize his situation. And then he said, and I quote, if you take him down, you'll be able to silence 100 more professors. I emailed the university. I asked them, A, are you going to condemn this? B, are you going to sanction the students that have been, related to this. And by the way, and I said that, are you going to condemn this? Not as a Jewish professor being attacked, but just any professor being attacked. Nothing. I never even got a response from, the highest I got was a response from the vice president of public safety, who said, don't worry, there's no risk to you. All right. So already administration doesn't do anything. The day the new interim president was announced, I personally emailed her and said, look, you don't know me, but you may have heard some things about me. I just want you to know that I'm not fighting against Colombia. I'm fighting for Colombia. And I would love to work with you. And I want to give you like whatever resources that I can, either in front of the scenes, behind the scenes. I just want to help make the schools safer for everyone. I never got a reply. So you have to ask yourself, and these are just 3 things, and I can name multiple, many, many more things. You have to ask yourself, like, is the administration doing anything? They might be doing something behind the scenes. They might be, putting lipstick on a pig. Yeah. But in reality, like, you have, like, these are 3 major strikes, right? Like, at least reply, at least say in an email, thank you for your email. At least say, this person, we're not going to fire them, but they're not going to be in a power position over Jewish students and Jewish faculty. Nothing. And I can keep going. We had professors like Susan Bernofsky and Jonathan Slaughter, who participated in the protest with their bodies, stopped the police from actually keeping the law, because they didn't like the laws, they broke it. But then now they're part of the law committee, the rules committee in Senate, trying to change the rules. So it's very, very deep. It's very entrenched in how the administration is working. And other than like trying to pretend that they're doing something, they really haven't done anything.
Do you see this, Shai, as changing American college life? I feel, a lot of things have changed. The America that I grew up in is not the same. At least it doesn't seem the same to me from far away. Do you feel like this is a turning point for colleges, for universities? I mean, suppose I'm being naive. Maybe we had that turning point and we just didn't recognize it. They've been playing the long game. They've been working on this for a very long time, and we've been asleep at the wheel, having really no idea that our universities were actually being infiltrated. But now that we're awake, do you see that this is going to change the way colleges and universities are run or are administered? I don't even know the right words to use.
Yeah. So I don't know if it will be a turning point, because I believe that universities, like the banks in 2008, they have become too big to fail. They have become, like, especially like these very expensive universities, they have become too big to fail. They will be bailed out either with money or with moral claims or something. They will be bailed out because, Harvard doesn't need students. Harvard can stop admitting students for 10 years and it will keep the brand name. What they need is the brand Harvard. Columbia doesn't need students. They don't care about students. They have $14 billion of endowment. They care about real estate. They don't need the students. So I don't know if it will be a turning point, but I believe that it should be a turning point. It should be a turning point for a few reasons. If you look at the history of American education, especially these elitist universities, they used to be, only for the very rich. That's what they used to be. Yale, Columbia, Harvard, Princeton, they used to be only for the very rich. And also many of the big expense, the famous state schools, while they were state funded, but people would come from other states and the rich people would come from other states. Then, the GI Bill. We forget that after, 1945 to 1965, 1970, the schools got an influx of less affluent people, just regular Americans that from all walks of life. Now, of course, they had a problem with diversity. They had a problem with racial diversity, gender diversity. Like, I'm not saying there weren't problems. There were many problems, but the schools got an influx. But if you look at it now, the schools are back to being like the playground of the 1%. 13% of students at Columbia come from the top 1%. 38% come from the top 10. It's a playground. It's literally a playground for very, very rich kids. And I know, because I know veterans that still go to Columbia on the GI Bill, not many, and not just Jewish veterans. There are some Jewish veterans, but also non-Jewish veterans that are being called baby killers, that are being called horrible, things that you can imagine. American veterans being called in their classes, and the professors sometimes say nothing, sometimes they nod along. Now, that by itself should be a turning point. But beyond that, colleges used to be, and again, this isn't like looking back and saying how amazing the past has been, which I understand we all have that as we grow older. Nostalgia. We have the tendency, kids these days. But if you just look at the composition of professors in terms of ideology and in terms of politics, 40 years ago versus now, 50 years ago versus now, you would see more diversity of thought. You would see more arguments within departments rather than what we have seen, which is a purge of dissenting views. That is why I believe the statistics, and you need to check me on this, but I believe the statistic is the ratio of registered Republicans to registered Democrats in the humanities is about 1 to 15.
That's nuts.
So now I'm not saying I'm not Republican and I'm not Democrat. I'm Jewish, but it's like, to me, it's like they each protect us when they want to, and they each attack us when they want to. But to me, the fact that we have lost that diversity of thought, and forget Israel, forget Jews, we are just the test. We're the litmus test.
Always. Yeah.
What happens when the next thing will come, right? The next thing will be, we want to debate, I don't know, take some other hot topic issue. We want to debate gun laws. Well, you can't debate gun laws in the United States in colleges because everyone is on one side. By the way, I'm on that side as well. Yeah. But because
you recognize the importance of being able to have a conversation, a debate, a hearing the other side.
But the thing is this: if you don't have people on the other side, you become lazy, and your thoughts become lazy, and your ideas become stupid, and our ideas have become extreme and unchallenged. So I want people that disagree with me to be on campus, to be in my school, to be in my department, so that I can make my arguments better. It's extremely hard today to find diversity of thought in the humanities and in many of the social sciences at Columbia and these elitist universities, but I think all across the United States.
Shai, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to speak to you, to see what you're doing, and to really get a sane analysis of what's going on. And you're 100% right. At the end of the day, this cancel culture is really rotten for any side. And you're kind of pushing back, and we're very, very happy that you're on our side. Yeah.
And so thank you. And I'll tell you this, Fleur, my analysis is just one analysis. And that's something that's important for me to say. My analysis is obviously affected by my own experiences, by my own identity. Other people might have different analyses. And I am totally open to those analyses. Some people say, oh, he's overreacting. These people are overreacting. And I'm like, okay, fine. But tell me why. Break down the evidence and tell me how, we should react when in the past we have underreacted, right? And then other people would say he's not reacting enough. He's too peaceful. He still believes in a two-state solution. He still believes in coexistence. He still believes in talking with each other. And I was like, fine, that's also fine. But break that down for me. What do you believe in? How do you see it? Only if we do that, then...
And that's what university used to be about. So thank you for keeping that flag flying. And it's been a real honor to have you. And we look forward to meeting you in person when you come back to Israel. And luck with anything and everything that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Toda rabah.